Okay, I'm told that it's now 5:30, so let's start the meeting. So I'll declare open the meeting of the Shire of Derby West Kimberley Commissioner, and thank those people in attendance here in the audience. I understand some people are candidates, some people are members of the public, some are from business. We also have some people online, and I welcome them. Particularly wanted to acknowledge Luke Westlake, though, for the CEO of the Kimberley Ports Authority. Luke and the Shire are doing good work on the port, so thanks very much for your support and thanks for coming along tonight, Luke. And I think James McGovern is probably online as well, and I'd just like to acknowledge James because he this week has been doing some pretty important training with all of the staff on ethical decision making. So this is an initiative of the Tamaras to drive that through all of the staff. So all of the staff are getting ethical decision making training, and James is delivering a nice product there. So hi to you, James, if you're online. Let me go with the normal agenda then. So item 2. This meeting will be video recorded and live streamed on the Shire's YouTube channel, with the exception of confidential items and periods of adjournment as determined by the presiding member, which is me. By being present in this meeting, members of the public consent to the possibility that their voice and/or image may be live streamed to the public. Recordings will also be made available on the Shire's YouTube channel and website following the meeting. The official record of the meeting will be the written minutes, kept in accordance with the Local Government Act 1995 and any relevant regulations. Item 3, Acknowledgement of Country. In the spirit of reconciliation, the Shire of Derby West Kimberley acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout the Shire and the continued connection to the land, waters and community. Shire of Derby West Kimberley would like to pay our respects to the people, the cultures and the elders past, present and the continuation of cultural, spiritual and educational practices of Aboriginal people. I add my personal voice to that acknowledgement. Attendance via telephone and instantaneous communication. We have Director Neat online, but I'd also like to make the meeting aware that we have, to my right, we have Tamara Clarkson, the Chief Executive Officer. As I said, Wayne Neat, Director of Infrastructure, online from Fitzroy. Jill Brazil, who is at the back of the room but will be back at her seat in a moment, Director of Corporate Services. Luke Lawrence, Director of Community Planning. Maria O'Connell, who is our Coordinator of Communications and Media, and my trusty left-hand man, Ryan Balderson, who's Executive Assistant to the CEO. Okay. Item 5 is announcements of the presiding person without discussion. You're going to hear a lot of my voice tonight, and there are a range of things that I'm going to talk to. I would like to get a range of things on the public record, and that's both for the incoming council and also to record the things that have been done in my time here. This is likely to be my last meeting, so I hope everyone will indulge me that you will hear a lot of my voice, so get ready for it, guys. Statement from the presiding member. I speak today to the Shire after 5 months in the role as Commissioner. Elections for the next council and president will occur next month. The community should feel encouraged that 5 people have nominated to lead the council as president, and a record number of 17 people have nominated to serve as councillors. This is heartening, given that over the last few elections the Shire positions were often elected unopposed. This is a great start and now needs to be followed up by record voter turnout to cast your votes for the people that you believe best meets the needs of your community. I plan at this meeting, as has been my usual practice, to outline recent progress, but I also plan to send some messages to candidates and the community about my experience working with the Shire and what we will all need to do going forward. So in terms of recent progress and activity, with a budget in place for 25-26, many would be aware that we have made some significant decisions about how best to cut our cloth. We continue to provide core services that the community can expect, but we have increasingly reduced expenditure and looked to efficiencies and a reduction in liabilities. I have in the last few weeks met with key state government ministers for Aboriginal Affairs, Water, Regional Development and Ports, Emergency Services and Local Government, and senior officials of Departments of Transport, Water and Emergency Services, and the incoming local government inspector and fellow commissioners working with other local governments in Western Australia. In addition, I've had the opportunity to discuss Shire priorities with the federal opposition leader, Susan Lee. Some of the subjects of these meetings I will include in my next Commissioner and CEO's update to the community. However, a few matters may be worth highlighting in this forum, given the audience that we have. First one is returning the lease of the port to the state government. Discussions have advanced well. The community is unlikely to see any material change on the ground. However, there will be a very significant change to the Shire's financial liabilities into the future. Community and recreational activity will continue as it has, and with other decisions that the Shire has taken earlier on in my term, will be enhanced by specific funds that have been set aside for that purpose. I'm confident that a final draft of an agreement between Kimberley Ports Authority and the Shire that I believe meets the needs of our community and all port users will be available for the next council to decide upon as soon as it has undertaken the community consultation that has been called for. Upgrading the recreational boat ramp. The Shire has a small grant funding commitment of $750,000 already locked in, but that just starts the project. An earlier state government budget commitment for an additional $2 million remained pending. I've taken the opportunity over the recent 2 weeks to firm that funding commitment up to a binding one. This means that the Shire has real funds of approximately half the value of the cost required. This provides strong negotiating position for the Shire to leverage the money it already has locked in with grant funding partners. I've started the advocacy that an incoming council can continue. Upgrading the boat ramp now seems like a practical ambition. Retaining Broome Derby Air Service. I have, during my tenure as Commissioner, been advocating for the continuation of the heavily subsidised air service that connects Broome and Derby. Usage numbers are low. In a partnership with the Department of Transport, we have secured a formal policy directive from the Premier to state government agencies about their use of the service. This is an important step and one that requires continual advocacy from the Shire if the state subsidy is to be retained. I plan to do more work with the regional heads of state agencies over my last month to highlight the value to their operations and the broader community for continuing with that service. To the community, I ask that where possible, please use that service. You're in a use it or lose it situation, really. Youth services. Shire and the partnership with Aboriginal community controlled organisations. Shire continues to develop a partnership to deliver youth services in both Derby and Fitzroy Crossing. An expression of interest has been completed and discussions are now commencing around the development of a service level agreement with a selected Aboriginal community controlled organisation in each town. I'm confident that this sort of approach will build a better, more sustainable service that will also underpin local employment and development of important services and infrastructure. These are a few of the project priorities that the Shire's been working on, but it's also worth focusing on a few of our governance and finance priorities. These were an important focus for me from the start. I've talked before about the budget and its importance to the sustainability of the Shire, and I will continue to emphasise the need to remain financially focused and disciplined, particularly over the next 4 years. Importantly, a new council needs the clearest picture of the budget as their start point. There will be a late item tonight where I'll be making some budget amendments over the next later on in the agenda, and that will bring the budget up to its most accurate current position so that they've got a clear starting point. That's the new council has a clear starting point. The Shire is required by legislation to maintain a governance and reporting framework, the primary elements of which are a strategic community plan, a corporate business plan, a long-term financial plan, asset management and workforce plans. Maintenance and adherence to these plans is one of a list of mandatory requirements for a council, and it must be the focus of a new council going forward. As I've said previously, I will provide the new council with formal advice and some suggestions, but for tonight, I'll just give you a brief overview of the progress to date on updating the mandatory reporting framework. Firstly, the preparation of a combined strategic community plan and corporate business plan has started and will need to be guided and finalised by the new council. Good community engagement will be key to making sure the plan is the effective document that is required to help shape annual budget decisions. This process is on track. The second one is the long-term financial plan, and that looks at council finances out for 15 years. It's a foundational guide. You'll note that I'll be considering a long-term financial plan tonight, and we'll have much more to say when that item comes up before me. For now, just let me say that I've worked closely with the Shire's senior staff, particularly wanted to identify Jill Brazil there, who's worked very closely on this, and our external advisor, More Australia, in order that the draft can be considered tonight. It can be modified by a new council. So this is not in place forever. It can be modified by a new council, but it provides a solid start point around which to shape Shire priorities and the next Shire budget, including strategically considering rates and other revenue. Without a long-term financial plan and a closely managed budget, the Shire is flying blind. Third one is that staff-led processes to prepare a workforce development plan and an asset management plan are underway, and I will report progress and suggested next steps to the incoming council. These plans, when completed, provide much of the mandated local government reporting framework. However, the plans by themselves are not enough. There are other ingredients to consider, and there's 4 key points I want to highlight. Oversight of an incoming council, coupled with a disciplined approach to budgeting will be essential. For the first time, the Shire has appointed an internal auditor to assist management oversight of administrative practice. An Audit and Risk and Improvement Committee has been established with independent expertise. That committee has a terms of reference and has met, and we are this week advertising for an independent chair of that committee. These are all requirements of local government reform changes. Tonight's meeting will consider the minutes of the committee. A new council will be able to rely on a second set of eyes looking over big picture risks and performance, and will need to consider that perspective seriously as they weigh important decisions and impacts. The second of the four matters I want to highlight is that context will be important for a new council to consider. So the preparation of an economic development strategy has commenced. It should provide important and realistic economic aspirations both for business and the community. To lessen the consultative burden in the preparation of several plans, the Shire is bringing those consultative processes together where we possibly can. We're very conscious of over-consultation being an issue. That's also appropriate to do, as the plans should be linked and cross-inform each other. Similarly, there are other processes happening concurrently, and the important water plan being led by the Department of Water and Environmental Review is an example. I encourage the community to step into all these processes, as they will collectively shape your future with your involvement. Third out of four matters is that training and skills development for an incoming council will be important if we are to build on the progress made to date. Not all prospective councillors have extensive local government experience. That's not unusual. That applies in many councils, and it often applies around election time. This is somewhat exaggerated this year, as a total of 9 vacancies now exist. Quality training is available for new councillors to equip themselves for their roles, and we have organised for Walga to deliver that training in person very early in the term of the new council. I would encourage as many of the new council as possible to do that training together to help build a strong, skilled and collegiate council. The final matter is having a partnership approach. This Shire recognises that it faces a wide range of pressures and limited resources, and thus can only complete its mandate in partnership with others. Building partnerships will continue to shape the Shire of Derby West Kimberley and place it as a reliable partner. This must be a crucial component of attracting the external financial assistance that is progressively going to be required in coming years. These considerations are important ways that the new council will be able to meet the enhanced strategic role that local government has been given with recent amendments to the Local Government Act. So the role has changed for councillors. Make no mistake, the role of council is different from the traditional role that has prevailed. New councillors will need to fully embrace the induction and training processes that will be made available to them very early on in their term. This statement provides me with an opportunity to also acknowledge the power of work that has been completed in the last 5 months by the Shire and the dedicated and skilled team led by the CEO, Tamara Clarkson. Thanks, Tamara, to your team. Nothing has been too much. Almost there. Acknowledging that all things that need to be done have not yet been completed, I hope to be able to finish some more of them in the month that I have left. Finally, I want to send a message to the community that the sound planning basis, a clear financial trajectory and a dedicated and disciplined council supported by well-led and focused staff means that the future of the Shire of Derby West Kimberley is an exciting one. I hope the community and prospective councillors take something from this statement. To the candidates, my best wishes, and to the community, I hope you all vote in record numbers, because your Shire is important and the people you elect are vital to the proper functioning. Thanks very much for your indulgence, everybody. That's the announcements from the presiding person. Move on to item 6, disclosure of interests. Declaration of financial interests, I have nil in front of me. Declaration of proximity interests, I have nil. Declaration of impartiality interests, I simply reiterate previous declarations I have made about being a councillor in the Shire of Wyndham East Kimberley, and a Director of Goomla Investments Proprietary Limited and the Woodman Foundation. No other declarations of impartiality interests. Application for leave of absence, I have nil. Moving on to item 8, responses to previous public questions taken on notice. I wonder whether we should, is that where we should put Mr Twaddle's question? Oh, it was, okay. Righto, move on there, we don't have any there. We now move on to public question time, and we have 2 public questions that we have in front of us. The first one's from Mr Twaddle, and I wonder with the CEO whether you might go through the question and our answer, please.
Thank you, through the Chair. The question received from Andrew Twaddle reads, if I may refer back to the Ordinary Council Commissioner meeting minutes and the agenda held on the 31st of July 2025, item 12.4 accounts for payment in June 2025, the EFT entry 62642, DWA Industrial Resources Pty Ltd, to fabricate and fit out of 2 heavy-duty trailers costing $229,732.65. This, to me, is an excessive amount for 2 trailers. The first of Andrew's questions, where are these trailers located and what is their purpose and intended use? And what vehicles would be required to mobilise these trailers? Staff have provided the following response. The trailers are designed to support Shire and community events, including in remote Aboriginal communities. The trailers are off-road capable and come fully equipped with fridges, barbecues, sound systems, internet connectivity, and other event requirements. The trailers will also be available as hireable Shire assets for use by community groups in accordance with the Shire's 2025-26 fees and charges. The trailers have been designed to be mobilised using the vehicles already within the Shire's fleet. The trailers were originally intended to be based in Derby and Fitzroy Crossing. However, due to security concerns with the depot in Fitzroy Crossing, both trailers are based in Derby. The second question reads, where was the funding for these trailers sourced from? Grants or Shire ratepayer funds? As I am certain these were not budgeted for in the 2024-25 budget. Response provided is that Lottery West provided a grant to the Shire for up to $868,150 towards vehicles, equipment and staff costs to enhance youth provision and support collaborative work to improve community facilities and to reduce disadvantage in the 2022-23 financial year. 2 high-ace buses were purchased in 22-23 and are currently used by the youth team to provide pick-up and drop-off service for youth at their programs in each town. $326,172 was provided as a contribution towards youth equipment and staffing for youth-focused community activations and planning. This went to sporting equipment, inflatables for both the Derby and Fitzroy Crossing swimming pools, and towards staff costs. The trailers are the final element of this grant, with $232,780.75 being provided for this component. Thank you.
Thanks. Second question that we've got that we've had some notice for is from Mr McCumsty. So, do you want to ask that from where you are, Peter, or would you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, CEO. The question relates to the ongoing issue at the moment about excessive costs being incurred by residents and businesses that are dependent upon septic tanks as their only means of processing disposal of liquid waste in Derby, and I believe the same applies to Fitzroy Crossing, though I haven't as yet been able to verify that. Part of the issue for the town as a whole, as far as Derby is concerned, is that 1/3 of the town still remains on septic tank service rather than the sewage program, and that's something I think that we need to be pursuing in the future. However, question part A, can the relevant Shire staff confirm that all septic tank liquid waste in Derby and Fitzroy Crossing now being trucked to the Broome waste site, and there is no longer access for this waste to be disposed of at the Derby Liquid Waste Disposal Facility? And part 2, or part B, has there been discussion and or investigation of the underlying issue between the Shire and Watercorp with the view to understanding and finding a resolution to this situation, which is currently costing private house owners and some businesses over treble the cost to dispose of their liquid waste, so somewhere in the vicinity of $1,300 previous to around $3,700 now approximately. Thank you.
CEO.
Thank you, through the Chair. So in response to the first part of that question, liquid waste from within the Shire of Derby West Kimberley is required to be disposed of at a licensed controlled waste facility, which for Derby does mean that the closest is Broome North Wastewater Treatment Plant, which is owned by the Water Corporation. And in Fitzroy Crossing, it's either Broome North or the Halls Creek Waste Disposal Site. In response to part 2 of that question, in Fitzroy Crossing, the Water Corporation has never accepted liquid waste, and the Shire's non-compliant facility was closed several years ago. This has meant the community of Fitzroy Crossing has been trucking waste for some time. In Derby, the Water Corporation has been accepting liquid waste at its ponds for many years. However, they did advise recently that their ponds were being damaged by the amount of solids within the liquid waste, and therefore to lengthen the life of their ponds and to reduce the maintenance costs, they have made the decision to close the ponds for liquid waste receival. Water Corporation maintain a position that it is the responsibility of the local government to accept and manage liquid waste, and in the present environment, the Shire does not have the capacity or the licence to undertake this. To accept the liquid waste, the Shire would have to construct a compliant facility, which currently it does not have the financial capacity to do so. The Shire does continue to work with the Water Corporation to devise a suitable solution and has recently escalated the need to find a suitable short and long-term solution. The Shire expects to meet with senior Water Corp officers on this subject in the very near future. Thank you.
Can I ask a quick supplementary to that? So part of the longer term solution, would that include the development of new waste facilities for the Shire, and how far advanced are they?
Well, answer the first part of that is yes, it does, and it's in the scope of the design of the new landfill site. In terms of where that currently is, I don't particularly want to speak off the top of my head on that. I'm wondering whether Wayne might be able to say something about that. So, Wayne, did you hear the point? How far advanced are we with the new waste site? Over to you.
So at the
Can you hear it?
through the chair, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, you're okay. Just speak up. You'll be fine.
Through the chair, we're trying to secure the sites through native title, so we're not that well advanced in the new sites. However, we have in the past developed 2 treatment plants for both Derby and Fitzroy Crossing. We probably would need to review those to see their currency with current standards. But it's the financial component that we're missing to then put both those plants in place.
So in
Does that answer
summary,
the question?
thanks. Right. In summary, we're on to that. It is not an immediate fix. So if there's any thought that there's an immediate fix there with a new site, that we should dispel that. There are some other issues in relation to the new site which we're working on. But we think the key is to be working on both an immediate and mid-term solution with the Water Corp, and we're engaged with Water Corp to try and find that.
Last one, I promise. So my understanding was that as an outcome of the flood and the utilisation of the Derby waste facility by Fitzroy Crossing having to close theirs and other issues around the flood, that funding for new waste area waste facilities for Derby would be part of that flood recovery money. or the resilience money. Is that still the case?
Still on the table, still discussing that with DFIS, but that's positive. There are some issues around timing of that money, but we're hopeful that those funds will still be made available. They're not yet sitting in our bank account. Anything that you need to add to that answer, Wayne, or is that accurate?
Through the chair, that's accurate.
Thanks. Thanks. Are there any other public questions? Any other questions that members of the public would like to ask? Okay, well, thanks for those. Are there any public statements? Item 9.2. Anyone want to make a public statement? No. Item 10. Petitions, deputations, presentations and submissions. I have nil. We'll move to the item 11, the confirmation of the minutes of the previous meetings. And we've got two meetings here. One is the first one is the minutes of the ordinary council commissioner meeting held at the conference room of the Luma community in Kimberley on the 21st of August. The recommendation is that they be confirmed. I have been through those minutes and believe that they're an accurate record, so I'll be moving those minutes that they be confirmed and declared that be passed 1-0. For candidates in the audience that are in the gallery that aren't aware of this process, normally, of course, that all the councillors would be voting on that matter. We don't have those councillors, so this is a fairly streamlined process, and there's only one vote, unfortunately, at the moment. Second one is a recommendation about the minutes of the special council commissioner meeting held at the council chambers, Derby, on the 29th of August 2025 be confirmed. I've been through those minutes and I believe they're to be accurate. I'll move those minutes be confirmed and declare that passed 1-0. Recommendations and reports of committees. Well, with some pride, we're putting on the table, we're showing the minutes of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee. This is the minutes of the first meeting of this newly reconstituted group. Before I get to the minutes and the items in the minutes, there's another thing I'd like to say about the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee. This is the first Shire of Derby West Kimberley Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee that has had independent members attached to it. And that's a requirement of recent local government reforms. It's also a requirement from October 2025 that the committee must be independently chaired. As noted in an earlier Shire meeting, we embrace those reforms. The independent committee membership appointments have been made by me that only extend up until the October local government election. New appointments will need to be made by the incoming council. An independent chair of the committee will be required following the October elections. An advertising process to source an independent chair has commenced this week. I encourage the new council to make prompt appointments of the independent members and its chair. In addition, I take this opportunity to make two additional points. The work of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee will be a vital tool for a new council. I strongly suggest that the new council embrace the committee's role and use it to enhance council oversight of the full gambit of risks and improvement initiatives that the council will face. The new council should note that the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee does not relieve the council of its responsibilities for oversight of audit and risk. It is but one mechanism that assists council, and particularly assists council, to focus on its enhanced functions under the local government reforms, and particularly section 2.7 of the council, which 2.7 about the role of the council, which prescribes an enhanced function for councillors to be strategic in their consideration of risk. An internal auditor has recently also been appointed, and that'll provide a very important enhancement to the management oversight of the administrative practices of the Shire. I strongly suggest the new council become familiar with and embrace the role of the internal auditor. With these comments in mind, I also signal that I'll be making more specific suggestions about council role and its use of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee directly to the new council as they are appointed. So with those comments in mind, with those comments in mind, I'll move to the recommendation, and that is that the Council Commissioner receive the minutes of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee meeting held on the 21st of August 2025 and the recommendations therein be adopted. I'm required to go through. So I was in attendance at that and I chaired that meeting. I'm comfortable that the minutes are an accurate reflection. I don't intend to go through the detail of the minutes. I'm happy to move that the minutes of that committee be received and I'll declare it passed 1-0. Thanks for keeping the process straight tomorrow. Item 13, Corporate Services, Accounts for Payment. We now move on to two fairly standard matters where we're required to consider those accounts that have been paid under delegated authority during, the first one is during August. This is item 13.1. I note the comment from the administrative staff that all municipal fund expenditure included in the list has been incurred in accordance with the 25-26 annual budget as adopted by the council. And I'll move to the recommendation that Council Commissioner accept the list of accounts for August 2025 paid under delegated authority in accordance with Regulation 13(1) of the Local Government Financial Management Regulations 1996, totalling $7,571,187.70. I'll move that motion and declare it carried 1-0. Moving on to item 13.2, which is a summary of Council's financial position as at the 30th of July. There's several points and comments to be made there. Most of, well not most, but a sizable number of those will be dealt with in a budget amendment that we'll consider as a late item tonight. And several, resolving some of them are contingent on how that budget amendment goes through later in the agenda. I move to the recommendation that Council Commissioner receives the monthly financial management reports incorporating statement of financial activity for the period ending 31 July 2025. Move that motion and declare it carried 1-0. Item 13.3, Statement of Financial Activity for August 2025. So this report summarises our financial position as at the end of August and there are similar matters involved here that will be resolved in the budget amendment that comes up later in the agenda. I'll move to the recommendation that Council Commissioner receives the monthly financial management reports incorporating the Statement of Financial Activity for the period ended 31 July 2025. I'll move that motion and declare it carried 1-0. Right, moving on to item 13.4. And it's with some pride that we put on the table a long-term financial plan for the Shire. This is part of our integrated planning and reporting framework. It's important that this be done because, as we know, the underlying financial position of the Shire is challenging and has been challenging for some time. I want to make a few points before we go into it in a bit of detail. The last long-term financial plan was prepared by the Shire 6 years ago. Financial sustainability challenges facing the Shire of Derby West Kimberley are well known and have existed for many years. The most appropriate way for a council to manage in a financially constrained environment is to start with an agreed understanding of both the long-term demands for resources and its anticipated revenue, coupled with a clear and agreed understanding of its operating environment. These are the building blocks for a long-term council financial plan. And the plan is the basis to guide and shape strategic and evidence-based decisions of council. These are words that you'll see more and more regularly in terms of the local government review, that councils are now being pressed to make strategic and evidence-based decisions. That's the role of the new council. With that objective, a new long-term financial plan has been prepared, not only because it's important to meet our reporting requirements, but most importantly because it makes sound business sense for the Shire. So I'd like to just move on to what the long-term financial planning process tells us about our situation and what we can do. There's a few points to make here. And the first one is, some of this will be obvious to people, but it may not be obvious about what we might be able to do about it. So the Shire is in a tight financial position. With sensible decisions, it is manageable. Many shires around the state are in similar positions. Close financial monitoring at a strategic level and early warning will be key. As I've said before, I strongly suggest that the new council use the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee and its internal auditor to assist. The Shire has low levels of reserves. It's very important. The Shire has very low levels of reserves, and that makes investment decisions challenging, particularly when attracting grants that require matching money. The Shire can progressively take decisions that purposefully build reserves. Third matter is that the Shire of Derby West Kimberley has relatively low external grant contributions. It is able to build, the Shire will need to build its internal capability to attract grants and focus on being a strong and reliable partner for potential grant funders. So build the capacity inside the Shire to attract grants and be a strong partner for grant funders. Fourth matter is that there are big unavoidable investments coming, and they are for core infrastructure. We've already talked about the landfill site. We need to develop strong and comprehensive planning basis that allows council to plan for those major investments well ahead and deliberately create opportunities for external grant funders and partners to come on board. The Shire's capacity to service debt is limited. Prudent debt financing and the reduction in borrowings over the longer term is going to be vital. This long-term financial plan does that. The Shire revenue raising capacity is constrained. Rates provide around 40% of the revenue. The council is going to continually need to consider long-term but reasonable rate raising strategy. And I don't mean we're going to need to raise, tied up my words there. We need to have a very long-term rating strategy in order that we can have some clarity about the revenue that we're able to raise. We have limited capacity to fund asset management and renewals, and that poses a very significant long-term pressure. Better understanding the whole-of-life asset planning is going to be important. Creating and socialising a strategic level asset management framework will be the way to deal with that, and some work and thinking has started in that space. But of course, it's your biggest cost going forward, so you're going to need to be on top. The new council is going to need to be on top of asset management. Probably always going to be short in that space. Shire is faced with a challenging operating environment with escalating costs and particularly insurances. We need to consider these long-term pressures, monitor the trends and prudently plan for them. That all sounds pretty negative, but the final point I wanted to make is that development opportunity and innovation provide some options for upside benefits for the Shire. We need to consider those opportunities optimistically, be informed by the evidence and the experts, but plan conservatively. Long-term financial plans must inform the budget process that the Council must follow. So this plan's a start point, but I want to reiterate to everybody in the room and everybody online that it can and should be updated regularly by the Council. We've simply tried to create a starting point that a new council can build on. So all that said, we probably should be looking at some of the detail that it contains. So I think I'll go through some of those points. Thanks for raising those in the paper, Jill. I think I'll go through some of those points. Lots of work on this by the Shire's financial staff, by the directors, by the CEO, and myself with More Australia, our external advisors. We wanted to focus on getting a start point for the next council. So we've forecast inflation around 2.5%. There will need to be minor rates increases with inflation, probably about 1.5% above inflation. Fees and charges 0.5% above inflation. Employee costs will need... In fact, I don't think I probably need to go through all of the numbers. I won't go through all of those numbers, but I will say that I will pick out some big ones here. The capital projects, we've worked on the basis that the Fitzroy Airport, the $30 million required there, will be fully funded. That the Derby Airport reseal of 2.1 will have $1.5 million in funding provided for it. That we will get roads betterment of $8 million and that'll be fully funded. We're suggesting that the new boat ramp will be almost fully funded from the money that we're starting to build for that. The multi-purpose centre, $52 million plus inflation, must be fully funded. It'll drive the council broke if it's not. So it must be fully funded. The Derby landfill closure of 6.65 million plus inflation is included. Plant replacement around $500,000 a year, asset renewals around $250,000 a year. Surplus funds are to be accumulated in a strategic planning reserve. So I've said earlier on, council needs to be focused on building its reserves and keeping them in a strategic reserve location. Now, if we can't find all of those funds, these projects can't be funded. So we've worked on the basis of what we think might be reasonable to be able to be funded projects going forward, and that's the plan, the draft plan that's in front of me. I wonder whether I've missed anything, Jill. Is there anything that you'd like to throw in here that is a glaring omission on my part?
Through the chair, no, you've covered it all.
Okay. All right, well then, let me move to the recommendation. And the recommendation is that the Council Commissioner adopts the draft Long-Term Financial Plan 25-26 to 2040-41, so it's a long-term plan, and as attached. And you're not supposed to move these things with some pride, but I do. I'll move this with some pride and declare it carried 1-0 and hope that it's a great starting point for a new council. Okay, moving on to item 14, new business of an urgent nature. So this is, there are two late items here. Item 4, and the first one of them is a lease, and the second one of them is the budget amendment I flagged earlier on. So item 14.1 is the lease of Hangar 1 at the Derby Airport, on the Derby Airport access road. So we've been out for expressions of interest. Shire staff have assessed those expressions of interest, and we've effectively really only got one in the end. And there is a recommendation there that this is an acceptable lease figure, and that the arrangements are right. And the recommendation is that the Council Commissioner, by absolute majority, pretty easy to do when you only got one, absolute majority, 1, endorses the assignment of the lease for Hangar 1 Derby Airport to Frontier Helicopters. 2, authorises the Chief Executive Officer to sign and make any final amendments to the lease for Hangar 1 Derby Airport with Frontier Helicopters for 5 years, with the option of an additional 5 years. And 3, include the sum of $26,700 as income in the 25-26 annual budget, General Ledger account 3120635.3430 Aero, other income relating to aerodromes. I'll move that motion and declare it carried 1-0. Thank you. And the second one is the budget amendment that I've been talking about throughout the rest of the agenda. So, and in a moment, I'm going to ask the Director of Finance Director of Corporate Services to speak to some of this. But this budget amendment is not so much, this is not about spending new unbudgeted money. This is about adjusting the books so that the new incoming council has the most accurate position going forward. So it's adjusting the start point effectively for the incoming council. So I'm going to flick to you, Jill, and just ask you to give us just a bit of the context here and what's involved.
Thank you, through the Chair. I would just like to explain why this is a late item. It's around the end of financial year financial processes, and just the understanding that the end of year position, which we call the surplus, is not just determined on the 30th of June. It takes months of work to get there, and we are still at the stage of only having a draft annual financial statement, so we've been working on it to get it as accurate as possible, hence it being the late item before we make this amendment. But in regards to the budget amendment, the Shire of Derby West Kimberley adopted the 25-26 annual budget on the 18th of June 2025. The draft annual financial statements for the 24-25 year, that is 30th of June 25, which we're currently working on, has identified a difference between the potential actual closing surplus at the 30th of June and the estimated surplus we've used in developing the 25-26 budget. The closing surplus at the 30th of June 2025, which rolls over to the next financial year as the opening surplus, is what the budget is built on. When we refer to the opening surplus, we're also referring to brought forward funds. And this is a fixed starting point, whereas the estimated surplus, which we forecast in the budget, is based on anticipated revenues and expenses for the current budget period. At the time of budget preparation, which is early June 2025, all expenditure and income items that had been budgeted for in the 24-25 budget had not been received. Those details are in the agenda report. Hence, they were not included when calculating the opening surplus for our new budget, even after making every attempt to determine the most accurate opening surplus possible. The individual budget amendments which are listed include the early payment of financial assistance grants. Financial assistance grants are received from the from the state government, and we get them every year. It's always unknown whether they will be paid in June or July. We've built the budget assuming that they would be paid in July for the financial year, but they were received in June, hence one of the budget amendments required. We also received some contractor invoices for the 24-25 projects which were budgeted, but the actual expenditure invoices came in after the cut-off for the new budget, hence some amendments for them. And we are realigning, we have a proposed realignment of a loan repayment from 3 to 10 years to bring us in line with the requirements of the long-term financial plan. I would just like to note, and for information, that this is not uncommon in local government to have this budget amendment item as a result of a difference between the closing surplus, which is actually identified as part of the annual financial statements, and the estimated surplus we have used in the budget development. It is noted in the operational guideline number 8 for net current assets released by the now Department of Local Government, Industry, Regulation and Safety, point 6, which acknowledges that very often the estimated carried forward figure in the budget will differ from the audited annual financial statements carried forward figure. While there is no specific legislative requirement to amend the budget to adjust the income at the start of the year, which we're doing now, with the Shire's approach to our open and transparent governance, we considered it best practice to make this budget amendment now, when we have identified it, to set a clear financial position for the remainder of the current year and for the new incoming council. Thank you.
Yeah, so we might not actually have done this had we had lots of continuing councillors that could follow this through.
That is correct. It would have been picked up in the statutory budget review anyway, which happens in February. Yep. These items will also be included in that budget review for reporting again.
Okay. So I think it's a sensible thing to be doing, and it does provide some clarity for that new council that are then not going to say, well, the figures don't actually match, where in fact they do, and we've now built them to the best position that we can. So thanks, Jill, for that explanation. Right, I'm going to move to the recommendation. This one requires an absolute majority as well, and I think it requires me to do each one of these items. So the recommendation is that Council Commissioner adopts by absolute majority the following amendments to the adopted 25-26 annual budget to reflect the revised estimated net current assets brought forward from the previous financial year since adopting the budget on the 18th of June 25. 1. Reduce the available cash at program general purpose funding and nature classification, grants, subsidies and contributions by $4,246,331 for financial assistance grants received prior to the 30th of June 25. 2. Increase available cash at program general purpose funding and nature classification, grants, subsidies and contribution by $1,418,369 for additional financial assistance grants to be received in 25-26. 3. Reduce the available cash at program transport and nature classification materials and contracts by $615,317 for the remaining private works expenditure to be completed in 25-26. Point 4. Increase available cash at financing activities repayment of borrowings by $993,637 for the proposed reduction in loan repayments for 25-26 to align with the revised long-term financial plan and proposed restructure of the loan. 5, decrease the available cash at financing activities transfer to reserves by 283,327 for the transfer to the strategic planning reserve to meet future loan repayments and budgeted transfers. And finally, 6, increase available cash at the estimated net current assets brought forward for the 30th of June 25 by 2,732,969 to reflect the revised estimated net current assets brought forward from the previous financial year. I'll move that and declare it passed by absolute majority 1-0. Thanks very much. Thanks, Jill, for your work on that. Item 15, matters for which the meeting may be closed. Confidential matters, I have nil. I move to item 16.1, which is the date of the next meeting. So the next ordinary meeting of council will be held at 5:30 p.m. on 30th of October, that's Thursday, in the council chambers in Derby, and that will be presided over by a new president and councillors. Okay, I'll then move to close this meeting, but this is my last meeting, so you've got a few more words to hear from me. This is likely to be my last meeting as Commissioner of the Shire of Derby West Kimberley, and it provides me with the opportunity to reflect and make some acknowledgements. To the Shire staff, a huge thank you. You've made my role that much easier. The Shire should recognise that whilst it faced some governance challenges that precipitated my appointment, the dedication and skill of its officers is of the highest order. I particularly want to thank CEO Tamara Clarkson and her senior staff and directors, Wayne Neat, Jill Brazil and Luke Lawrence, and their teams. Brian Balderson for his support to me, Maria O'Connell for the long list of staff that work in the business of supporting your Shire. We've achieved a lot in 5 months and have a bit more to go in the last 4 weeks. To the people of the Shire, for the hugely constructive way that I've been embraced in my role, a personal thanks. I'm an outsider in your community, but from the very start I've been welcomed, and you've all been constructive as we tried to use this appointment as a form of reset for the Shire. Onwards and upwards, look to the future and build on our strengths have been the universal message. To the Shire's partners, whether they be business or government agencies or communities, thank you for the very constructive way you've all assisted with solutions. To key ministers and parliamentarians, thank you for supporting my role with timely strategic decisions and guidance. I particularly want to thank Minister Hannah Beasley, MLA, for being available and focused on the best outcomes for local government and this Shire. To the Honourable Stephen Dawson, MLC, for strategic intervention and support across government and the odd bit of wise guidance. To Honourable Don Punch, MLA, for advice and support with Aboriginal affairs and water issues. Honourable Paul Papalia, MLA, for stepping into the breach to assist with our finances at a crucial moment. And to Devine Deanna, MLA, a member for Kimberley, who assisted across the breadth of the Shire and with government access and support of my role. These are key state government stakeholders for our Shire, and they've all been available. Somebody's got a penalty, and they have all been available and assisted me. So thank you to them all. To the candidates, my thanks for stepping into this uncertain space of putting yourself up for election to serve your community. It's an important role. I hope we've been able to set a foundation for you to spring forward further on. I look forward to being involved in your induction and much more detailed discussion that I plan to have about the new Shire, about the Shire's business with the new council. Thanks very much, everybody, and with that, I'll declare the meeting closed at 6:32.
Thank you.